they've just told me they're opposed to it. And in my many discussions with ATF management, quite frankly, they don't want anything defined. And that would make it too easy to defend oneself. They have a lot of systems in place. People don't realize that have no business being in America, first of all. Some of the things that they're up to, the Kremlin during the Cold War would have been downright proud, and looks to be taken from the pages of a Gestapo manual, quite frankly.
In fact, if I could interrupt you just for a moment, there is a book, I'm sure you've read it by now, called Gun Control, Gateway to Tyranny, which JPFO publishes, and the book is a side-by-side comparison between the 1938 Nazi gun control laws and the 1968 United States federal gun control laws. I just think people, if they have a chance to look at that, they will be appalled at what the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is saying is okay in America. Because both parties support the 68 Gun Control Act without hesitation. If I can just give you one more example, we talk about they don't want anything to be defined, they being BATF. There's a term they've come up with called sporting purpose. And sporting purpose is lifted right out of the Nazi concept of gun control. The Nazis used the term not suitable for the hunting of fair game. And sporting purpose, as you know, and hopefully some of our listeners realize, has been defined to outlaw, to ban, to stop the importation of any type of military-style firearms that they determine is not suitable for sporting purpose. So I didn't mean to be so talkative, but go ahead.
No, you brought up a wonderful point, because guess what branch of the ATF determines whether something is of sporting purposes? Firearms Technology Branch. You can look in any law, you can look in the reference manual that is available publicly, you can look on their website. And the funny thing is, there's no definition for sporting purposes, just as there's no definition for readily restorable or readily convertible. That's a term that they use when they want to call a gun that, even though it doesn't fire full auto, it is not a machine gun in any way, shape, form, or fashion. If they feel that you can restore it readily, they will charge you with the machine gun possession charge anyway, even if it doesn't fire as a machine gun.
That's an interesting word that you use, if they feel that you can restore it. It's an amazing way to run a government, depending on how somebody feels on any given day.
You're listening to Talkin' to America with our guest, Len Savage. Here once again is your host, Aaron Zellman.
Talking about Glover, is this an isolated incident?
No. It really opened my eyes, because I looked at this from a very level-headed, calm, cool, and collected way and thought, surely this is just the exception and not the rule. Now, I've been involved in other court cases, both as a technical advisor and sometimes as an expert witness. And what I'm finding out is that this is the rule. It's not the exception. And there's many insidious ways that they get around this. To give you a way of background, Firearms Technology Branch, whether it be a criminal submission, somebody says this is a machine gun and they send it off to these folks in West Virginia to examine, or whether I, as a manufacturer, have came up with a new and innovative design and send it off to them and say, please classify, because that's all they're supposed to do is classify firearms, pigeonhole them, or they can only go in about a half dozen slots. Now, you would think that a government laboratory that, with things hanging in the balance so large, especially on the criminal end, that one, you would think that these folks would have some sort of engineering education or worked in the firearms industry. That's not the case. The BATF will train you, OJT. The only requirement for being an expert is to be a BATF agent. All right. In case in point, their assistant chief is a high school dropout who entered the Marines, and after he was honorably discharged, that's basically how he came to work for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He's second in command of this nation's foremost firearms laboratory. Now, there's another thing here. Not only are they not following a scientific method, which you would think would be expected in a so-called scientific laboratory, but they don't have any method. And this recently came to light when the Congressional Research Service released a memo last Friday that plainly states that there is no testing procedures manual, there is no written procedure other than some safety protocols. And those were only recently written. And one of the other insidious devices that if you find yourself on the receiving end of the BATF charging you, indicting you, your lawyer is going to file what's called a Freedom of Information Act request to try to get information on like devices and like classifications. Basically, what have they done in the past? Now, who do you think is in control of this database?
I'll take one guess. Your friends.
Firearms Technology Branch. All right? So they're the people who know that they've charged you, and they're the people who are in control whether or not you're going to have the information to defend yourself. Now, it goes one step further. In this Congressional Research Service memo to Congress, they document the fact that they have 300 cubic feet of classification letters. That's 1 foot deep, 3 feet high, and 100 feet long. And in all this time, nobody's ever thought to index them or catalog them. So physically, there's no way that you could get at the information to protect yourself. And the final arbiter of what information you'll get if you filed a Freedom of Information Act request is, of course, Firearms Technology Branch. So the deck is stacked against you. And it's no wonder that these federal courts have got a 95% conviction rate. There's no way to defend yourself against it. These folks control all the information. They don't have to follow a testing method. They can say, go figure out a way to make this machine gun. And since readily restorable is not defined in the law and not defined in the regulations, the ATF has two completely opposite standards that they run by. 15 minutes with basic hand tools. All right? The other one is 8 hours in a modern machine shop. And they'll hand it off to some guy in a machine shop, give him 8 full hours and say, make this a machine gun. Well, it's not a matter of if. I can take a kitchen sink in 8 hours and build you a machine gun. Modern machine shops with CNC capability, it's not even a question of if. It's a question of how many would you like, sir? And so it's totally unrealistic on how they're applying these laws and twisting them. And this one little group of folks, the Firearms Technology Branch, control everything from definitions to what is readily restorable, what is of sporting purposes. And we got a distortion of that about 2 or 3 months ago, the so-called barrel ban of 2005. And this is a distortion of a law that was set up years ago to ban the importation of Saturday night specials, supposedly the gun of choice of criminals. And this is how legislation can be twisted later, because the people who enforce it can reinterpret it at will. And there is no checks and balances whatsoever installed in this.
The CRS report that Len is talking about is available to be downloaded at jpfo.org. And it's a real eye-opener. The Congress of the United States is finally acknowledging that they've been giving money, your money, to a government agency that has been involved in activities that can be best described as highly questionable. Len, I'm just wondering, well, the CRS report came out, but how many people in Congress really know or care from your perspective?
Very few. Very few understand it, and very few understand the issues, because it seems they don't want to touch the Second Amendment issue. The Republican Party seems to be afraid of it, except for very few exceptions, and Congressman Gingrey of Georgia being one of those exceptions. Nobody would co-sponsor or co-sign H.R. 1603. Nobody. No other representative across this country thought that, gee, maybe we should be at least videotaping these guys and see what they're up to.